been updated. Actually, it's not been updated. It's been completely changed. So I would invite you to make sure you take note of that at some time during this Missions Month. If you have your bulletin, you'll also notice that there is a bookmark, a prayer reminder that lists all of the missionaries that First Baptist Church supports, where they're serving, and it's there to remind you to pray. One of the things that we want to do as a local church is actually partner with our missionaries. Some people have actually gone to visit them and serve with them on the field. Most of us won't have the opportunity to do that, but there is not one person in this room that could not pray. Pray with them, pray for them, pray for strength, for opportunity, that God will meet their needs, and that is a key way that we can partner with them. This summer, we had a missionary update by video from Glenda Akershuk. She serves the Lord at Memorial Christian Hospital in Bangladesh. She is sent as a missionary by First Baptist Church, Nuevo. And this morning, we're not just going to have a video. Glenda is here. She has completed 3 terms of service in Bangladesh, and we're excited to have an opportunity to connect with her today and to have a report about the ministry that she's engaged in. And one of the things that she will do is leave us with some specific ways that we can pray, and I hope that you will commit to doing that. She has the entire hour. I don't know if she's going to use every minute of it, but at the end she will leave time for questions and answers. So as you are listening to her report, think about any questions that you would like to ask Glenda. Let's open in prayer, and then we'll begin. Father, we are grateful this morning for your Son, Jesus. Many of us in this room are recipients of his marvelous grace, and we know that our sins are forgiven. We know that we have eternal life and a future in heaven. We know that we have the Holy Spirit of God indwelling us. We realize, Father, that we live in a fallen world and that there are many who do not have that personal relationship with Jesus. Thank you, Lord, that you call all of us to be witnesses of your Son. You call all of us to be ambassadors. And then there are some that you especially call to leave the comforts of home, as it were, and to go into the uttermost parts of the world to be salt and light. Father, thank you for these many years that we have been partnering with Glenda. Thank you, Lord, for all that you have accomplished in her and through her. We look forward to hearing her report today and would ask that, should your Son not return, we would have many more years to partner with her there at Memorial Christian Hospital. Bless our time together, we ask. We pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen. So without further ado, I'll introduce Glenda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you this morning. I recently returned from Bangladesh, as recently as late on Thursday evening. I think by the time we pulled in the driveway, it was early Friday morning. So my days and nights are a little bit flipped, and I've been up for a while this morning. So at some point, all of this energy, nervous energy, is gonna run out. So I appreciate your grace and forbearance in case I get my words all twisted up and I get things all discombobulated. We blame it on jet lag, and I know it's kind of an excuse, but I'll take any excuse I possibly can. I'm still excited that I can drink water out of the tap. You know, turn it on and drink. That's pretty cool, because where I'm from, you have to either boil it or filter it, and so living in America has a lot of interesting perks that I'm getting excited about. So I don't know if is the slides up yet? They're coming. Okay. Oh, actually, can we go to the way to the top? The very first one. Yeah, that one. Okay. So I've had as Dr. Steve said, I have the privilege of serving in Bangladesh I just finished my third 4-year term. But as many of you remember, I did some short term before that. So add another 3 years of short term on before the full time. I didn't know exactly how to. I'm having trouble getting started with doing a presentation for you, and so I decided, because I do some teaching and I like giving quizzes and things, I would start off with some quiz questions. You can relax. There's only 3 questions, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or anything, but just think what the answers might be. So the first one is where is Bangladesh? Is it A, in Africa? And then the other 4 options are all Asia. Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, or East Asia. So lock in your answer in your mind. And the correct answer is letter C. South Asia, also known as the Indian subcontinent. If you're confused by some of this, I know that sometimes geopolitical maps are a little fuzzy about some of the regions, but Central Asia is more like Asia Minor, Turkey, some of the Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, that type of thing. Southeast Asia is more Malaysia, Philippines, some of that, and then East Asia is more like China. So we're in the Indian subcontinent. So I know that many of you have seen this picture, this slide before. Bangladesh is the little yellow blob that's kind of tucked up underneath the little arm of India. So India has this little arm that sticks out, and up underneath, under the little armpit, is where Bangladesh is. And if you can imagine what it's like to live in anyone's armpit, just think about that, and you're halfway there. So we're bordered by India, and then there's a little bit of section down where I live that's bordered by Myanmar or Burma. And then, of course, there's the North Indian or Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal. Next question. How long does it take to get to Bangladesh? And we're just going to cut out the car trips in between, but Grand Rapids to Dhaka. Do you think it takes 48 hours? Do you think it takes 24, 12, or 4? Think about what your answer is. Oh, how I wish it was only 4. The answer went, okay, so I did this presentation before I left. So I worked on it earlier this past week. And honestly, it should have taken me 23, but it took me closer to, I think it was over 30 before I actually got home. They changed my first flight. I missed my connecting flight, so it ended up being a little bit longer than that. So if you, and this is really hard to see probably, but I just did it backwards. So I started at Malungat at the hospital. We took a car trip. So there are 2 car trips, 4 plane rides, 8,000 miles. So the first car trip went from Malungat to Cox's Bazar, which I caught a domestic flight from Cox's up to Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. And then from Dhaka, I flew to Doha. That was probably about 5.5, 6 hours. And then from Doha to Chicago, which is another 15 hours or so. And then from Chicago to Grand Rapids, and then, of course, another car trip on the other side. This is just for fun, because I love these ironic type things. So Cox's Bazar is a tourist town. It's about an hour south of us, and it's on the sea beach, and it's supposed to be the longest uninterrupted sand sea beach in the world. Now, don't think about tropical paradise. Think about lots of people everywhere just staring at you. But to go to Cox's Bazar, you're coming down this hill and you look up and there's the Bay of Bengal, the ocean in front of you. But before you get there, at the bottom of the hill, there's this traffic circle, and it's called Dolphin Moor. Moor means traffic circle. So, but you get down there and there are no dolphins in this. It is sharks, like 3 ugly, nasty sharks with big teeth. And I'm like, why would they do this? This is a tourist town. They want people to go out and go swimming and play on the beach. Why would they have this? And why would they call it Dolphin Moor? Some of these incongruencies just kind of crack me up. By the way, I don't know how many sharks are really out there, but I've been to the fish market and I've seen probably an 8-foot or 9-foot long hammerhead. So they are out there. I don't really want to know that they are, but there's certainly no dolphins in there. So this is a third and final question. Where is Memorial Christian Hospital, MCH? Is it on a tidal estuary near the Bay of Bengal? Is it close to the jungle? Is it in a village setting? Or is it in the southeastern part of Bangladesh? Okay, think about that. Now, it's a trick question because it's all of the above, okay? That was unfair of me, I know, I did it, but to see if you're awake. So, for all of them, so this map that I picked off from the internet, it shows all of Bangladesh, it's yellow, and then the orange part is actually still part of Bangladesh, but that's the Chittagong Hill Tracts. We used to be able to go there and to do medical clinics and different things, and we're not able to do that now. It's very unsafe. You have to get special permission and often a military escort to go into those areas. It's not so nice. Our hospital is down there. It's probably really hard to see, but the little red tiny X is just above where it says Cox's Bazar. That's where the hospital is. So we're in southeastern Bangladesh. I've also probably showed this slide before as well. This is our from Google Earth, and it's our hospital campus outlined in yellow. We're bordered on the east by the highway. The new hospital building is circled in blue, and then far off on the west side where there's that little red hash mark there, that's my house where my apartment is. It's a good probably 9 or 10 minute brisk walk to get from my house up to the hospital. If we go to the tippy top of the new hospital building, which is 4 stories above the ground, you can see that we live in a rural setting, a village type setting, but we're also next to the jungle. And if you look way off into the distance on a nice clear day when the humidity is low, you can see the Chittagong Hill Tracts. And those are like the baby foothills of the Himalayan mountains. We do live on a tidal estuary, so that means that the water goes up and down with the tides. And it used to be years ago when the hospital first started that patients would come through that way. A boat landing is called a ghat, and that's where Malam Ghat comes from. The Malam part people are disputing as to what that really means, but the ghat part definitely means boat landing. Now, I know you really can't see it on that black and white photo, but this is proof that we do have elephants that roam around our area. Many times our staff will come in the morning during certain times of the year and they'll be complaining, we didn't get any sleep last night because the elephant was there and they were in my garden and they were making a mess of things. But where we live, because we have a nice perimeter fence, we don't typically see them. However, one night, about a year ago, one of them decided to break through our fence and wandered around a little bit, and he broke through to get back out. And Bob Archibald was able to go back in the CCTV footage, and he was able to find it. So right above where that red arrow is the shadow of this elephant that wandered around. The picture, this just looks brown, is a depression in the dirt. That's an elephant footprint, and it's probably not the same elephant. This picture was taken in the village. We'd gone to visit someone on our way back out. We were like, oh, an elephant walked through here. So Bangladesh is known as one of the most densely populated places in the world, 174 million people according to the Worldometer. It's not even so much about the number of people, just how closely they're packed in together. The density, according to that, was 1,333 people per square kilometer. Now, I looked up the same information for what it's like in Michigan, and I lost track of my paper, but I think it was like 104 or 107 people per square kilometer. So you kind of compare that to what it's like there. The picture on the right is of Cox's Bazar Sea Beach. That's a typical day at the beach. It is, and those are all people that are out there just standing around, taking pictures. What do people look like? So Bangladeshis refer to everyone who lives in Bangladesh, but Bengalis are one race of people. And they have beautiful brown skin, beautiful brown eyes, brown hair. Some of the tribal people they look more More Asian, they have the epicanthal fold, so their eyes are slanted a little bit, their noses are a little flatter. But there are lots of different types of people who live in Bangladesh. The primary religion is Islam. It's more of a folk Islam, so it's not exactly what you read in textbooks. They do believe a lot in ghosts and evil spirits, and they'll wear a lot of charms to protect them from that. Now, this group of people, and I'm not going to say it out loud, but you can read it. This group of people have come across the border from Myanmar, and you've probably read about them in the paper. It's not something that necessarily hits international news all that much, but the people in Burma have had enough of them, and through attempted genocide, there are waves of people that come across the border. MSF has a refugee camp that's down south of us, and they have a clinic, and they do a lot of intake on patients. They have been referring some of their patients to us. There was a time when we had huge numbers of refugee patients who were coming to us. More recently, for different reasons, we've not had as many. But in the last few weeks, we've gotten a few more than usual, and it's really, really awful, some of the atrocities that we're seeing. Young kids who have been injured in war-type injuries who are coming to us for treatment. But for us, it's been a unique opportunity to reach a people group who've never really been reached before. And so as people come up, we share the gospel with them and hope that they make a decision. There are groups of believers in the camps, which has been an encouragement to us. This is the front of our hospital, and this is where I spend a lot of time. This is the back, just a different view of the back side of the hospital. So what have I been doing for the past 4 years? I have basically been dividing my time between supervising the female ward, supervising the outpatient department, which is like an outpatient clinic, emergency room. I did have the opportunity for about 8 or 9 months to teach at our health college to do nurse aid training. That's my woohoo, that's what I really love to do. And then I was back supervising the outpatient department in emergency room. I'll just show some pictures of those things. A lot of my colleagues, nurse colleagues, have a particular department that they always supervise. Like one nurse is in charge of the male ward. That's kind of her home base. Another one is in charge of the female ward. I don't really have a particular assignment. So when people go on furlough, when people go on vacations, and they need that part of the hospital covered, I will shift into that role and do that if I'm not involved in teaching. Teaching is where I really like to be, but for various reasons, we're not able to do a lot of education. And I'll share a little bit more about that as time goes on. But we're really struggling to get enough personnel to keep the hospital going. So we can't, what's the point of training if we're not going to be able to offer them jobs, kind of thing. So these are a couple of the patients. We take care of patients all the way from newborns, premature newborns, all the way up to the elderly. Every patient has a story. We hope that every patient gets to hear the gospel while they're there. I shifted back to the outpatient department, emergency room, and it's kind of fun to be in both places, spend time on the wards, and then see patients come back for follow-up. I also had the privilege of being there when 4 of our staff nurses took an extended training program to become mid-level providers, and so we had a special graduation ceremony for them. Nurse aid training, I did that in 2023. We trained 14 students. There were 9 ladies and then 5 gentlemen, and most of them are working in the hospital right now. Each student has a story, and I really enjoy working with students. We did some classroom and clinical. We've tried to demonstrate for them that taking care of patients is more than just giving bed baths and ambulating patients and doing dressing changes. It's treating the whole person. And so for our believers, modeling for them how they can share the gospel with their patients, as well as being able to play games with some of the kids and encourage them. Graduation day, all 14 of the students passed, although I had about 4 of them that didn't do so well on some of their final exams. We did a remediation program with them. Unfortunately, we're not able to hire them simply because we don't have enough physicians to keep more patients in the hospital. So it's been a burden and a discouragement for me that we trained them, we worked hard with them, and then we're not able to give them jobs in the end. I'm still hoping and praying that we can do that in the future. I cannot claim credit for all that they have learned. I have a staff of Bangladeshis who help me with the teaching. And this is this lady here, her name is Ratna, and I depend on Ratna a huge amount. I can delegate many, many things to her. She's a great teacher. She's got a good knack for just assessing a learner and knowing how to help them. A fellow believer, and it's just been a joy for me to work with her. Back to OPD and emergency room. You can see some of our patients are really thrilled with getting their weights. It's a swing scale that we put the kids in, and most of them absolutely detest it. This is Dr. Fowler, our family practice physician, who's also doing all the OB, and she loves to do deliveries, and this is a set of triplets who've come back for their checkup. With nutrition, we're seeing actually a fair number of triplet deliveries. And then back to my OPD staff. I just finished up working with them on September 19th. Their permanent supervisor came back from a furlough, and so when she took the helm, I skedaddled and went and did something else. This is the something else. This is everybody has a day job. My day job is working in the hospital or teaching in the school. My evening job is working in the go down. Now, go down is a British term for warehouse. I think in Togo you called it a magasin or something like that. So Women's Might in Grand Rapids sends us all these wonderful medical supplies, and somebody has to do the opening the drums and sort them. And I actually really, truly enjoy this type of work, but I don't so much enjoy doing it late at night. And I did a lot of that to be able to clear out the warehouse so that they could get another shipment after I left. So this is where I spent a huge amount of time. It's really, really hot out there. I have a little thermometer, and I think it clocked 110 at some point. I had a rule that I tried to leave when it hit 100 because the humidity is so high, it just feels hotter than what it really is. But by God's grace, we got it all out of the go down, and we put it in different places. There are several other storage places. I left a mess in some of those places for someone else to clean up, but at least I got that out. Some special guests. I was really, really blessed to have my oldest nephew, my brother Kevin. His oldest is Cody, and Cody graduated from high school, and he was able to come visit me for about 3 weeks, and that was in July, August of 2022. So anyone who comes to visit me, you might get to do some fun stuff, but there's also some work for you. And so he was helping me in the linen storage area. And then, of course, you'll probably recognize Pastor Tim Shaw. He was able to come and visit, and my dad got to be his companion to go with him. And they came in October of 2022, and it's still pretty hot. And so my dad struggled a little bit. They also worked in the warehouse. They did a huge amount of work for me. They unloaded all the drums, and we did the first pass on sorting. And you can see my dad, he's just like, his shirt's all sweaty, and yeah, they were good sports. They were good troopers about it. I really appreciate all that they did. A few special events that happened in the past 4 years. May of 2024, you may have heard a rumor that I was actually back at home for a couple of days, and that was true. These are my colleagues. I'm on the left, and then Heidi in the middle had back in May had a series of strokes, and we weren't really sure why. She's young, and she really needed to get back to the States for some treatment. And so our insurance company, the ABW has, it's not the greatest, and they they were willing to pay for a medical evacuation done in a commercial flight. And so different factors played into it, but it ended up where Teresa, who's on the right, is she's in charge of the male ward. She has a lot of experience with stroke and cardiac care, and so she was already planning to be home for, I think your sister was getting married, and so she had a valid visa, I had a valid visa, and so our team decided it would be good if the two of us took Heidi home. She lives in Ames, Iowa, and so I made the trip as far as Des Moines. I spent the night there, and then I flew to Michigan, and I was here for, I think it was like 4 glorious foggy days. I was so tired because you don't have time for your body to adjust, so you just kind of go through jet lag for like every day for like a week. But it was really a blessing to be able to help out a colleague during a time of need. Heidi's doing really well. She's hoping to be able to get clearance to come back to the field soon. Bangladesh also was in the news. I don't know how much of it made it into international news, but the students in Bangladesh, of whom are very, very many, were protesting government quotas. Government quotas were just ridiculous. 51% of the good government jobs were going to people who different quotas in the system, and so the students began protesting. They have been for years, but things just came to a head and escalated until July 18th of this summer, and things got violent. That picture on the left there it's a place called Newmarket. There's a traffic circle, and it's just all those colors. It's just people. There's no vehicles, as far as I could tell. There weren't, rickshaws. There might have been some motorcycles around the outside edges, but these are just students, people. And for the most part, the demonstration part was peaceful, and then the police started firing on them. Some students were killed, and then there was a lot of violence that ensued after that. Things kind of built up, and then on August 5th, our prime minister fled the country, just very suddenly by helicopter left and flew to India, which left us in anarchy that only lasted probably about 3 or 4 days. And as things go, I would say it was a pretty peaceful turnover. A caretaker government is now in charge of Bangladesh. Professor Mohammed Yunus, who started the Grameen Bank, did a lot with microloan program, won a Nobel laureate, I think. He was appointed to be in charge of the caretaker government. Theoretically, that government is only supposed to last 3 months, and then they need to have an election. I don't see that we're going to be ready for an election in 3 months, but we'll see how things go. Young people, there was a lot of graffiti, expression of speech. It was amazing, some of the things that are read in the newspapers about people were complaining against the previous regime, and they were just so thankful to be able to have freedom of speech for the first time in over 15 years. Some special blessings for me over the last 4 years. I used to attend a very, very large church that was within walking distance. And then a couple of years ago, I found out how to get to a smaller church plant, and I've been a part of that one. It's Berea Baptist Church. It's pronounced Beroya Baptist Church, in the little town of Dula Hazara. So I get in a little electric go-kart type thing, and I go out on the road. I don't drive. I hire someone to do it, but it's probably, I don't know, maybe a 15-20 minute ride down there. And the church is super, super tiny. It's maybe only got, on an average Friday when we have church, it's probably maybe less than 15 people. And then there's a bunch of kids that come. It's a Hindu area. They have endured a lot of persecution, but they've been very faithful in that, and I've enjoyed being a part of that church. I also, for years, I've talked about wanting to have a ladies' Bible study with professional women in the hospital, and that hasn't really materialized, but I have been doing a one-on-one Bible study with the young lady in the middle of the picture. She's one of our staff nurses, and she's had a rough time of things, and together we've been working on a book that was translated into Bangla, and it's Women of the Bible, and it goes through and does a lesson on each of the women in the Bible. And I'm just so amazed that a North American wrote the book, but so many of the questions and the way that they're worded are so perfect for the struggles that she's going through in a completely different culture. But I really appreciate, we've been able to get through maybe about 30 of the lessons so far, and I just enjoy the opportunity to do that. It stretches my Bangla too. I also really enjoyed in the past doing some mobile medical clinics, and we were able to do 2 in 1 day, which is a little bit stressful, but it was some of the best clinics that we've ever done. And we did it in 2 different villages, and it was just a real blessing to be able to be a part of that. I don't have anything to do with this people group per se, but a colleague was involved in doing this New Testament translation. This particular group, and again, I'm not going to say the word out loud, but this particular group has a very small number of believers, and they haven't had scriptures in their own language. And so the New Testament has been completed, and they have started on the Old Testament. Why this is significant, I'll share, I think, in the morning service, just briefly. Another special blessing for me has been to see some of our former students who were walking a very nominal Christian life have now, through their time at the health college, through discipleship, and it's a team effort. It's not just missionaries who are doing it. It's folks in our local church who are taking especially some of these young men under their wing and mentoring them and discipling them. And I am been really blessed. The gentleman on the left, he's one of our newer medics, and he, on his own initiative, decided to take some evening Bible course, not correspondence, Bible college classes on our campus, and he's just excited. He took a Bible doctrines class, and he really liked that. All he can talk about is the Baptist distinctives class that he's taken. So he's really, he's a really scholarly mindset, but he's really been growing in his walk with the Lord. And then the other one in the picture, that was his wedding picture. But this gentleman also has shown a lot of growth in his life. These 2 guys were on a path for destruction, and they were given a chance to study at the health college. And through just that experience, God has done a lot of good things in their lives. And then one more, this gentleman here, this is at so they do a turmeric bath before the night of the wedding. So this wasn't exactly a wedding photo, but it's part of the wedding festivities. Anyways, this gentleman, he was in our most recent nurse aid training program. And when we did we had like 170 people who got the application, and they had to pay a little bit of money to fill out the application, but 170 people took one. I think 140 actually filled it out, and we whittled it down to those last 14 that we actually trained in the program. And I remember on the day that we did interviews, and we interviewed him, and he was the most sullen, disengaged individual that I had seen. And so when we got to the end, I'm like, for me, it's a no-brainer. I don't want him. And the 2 people who were interviewing with me, one was Ratna, the lady teacher who helps me, and her brother, who is in charge of our human resources department. They both looked at me and they're like, no, we want him. And I'm like, are you crazy? I'm like, this guy is going to be nothing but trouble. And they're like, no, we really, really want him in the program. They said, he's the only Christian boy from the community, from the church, who's applied to be part of this, and we really want to give him a chance. And I'm like, okay, if you guys think that he's worth it, then we'll give it a shot. I said, but if this goes south, I said, I'm going to need your help to be able to get through it. Okay. So they went and they talked to the church leadership. They talked to his mom. His dad died when he was really small. We had a special meeting with him, and even just sitting there with his mother and this young man sitting across the table, I'm like, man, I just don't know that we're making the right decision here. And I was so wrong. All we needed to do was show him that someone believed in him, someone cared about him, somebody was praying for him. And it was amazing to see this man during even the first couple weeks of class, just open up and blossom. And I actually really enjoy interacting with him now. His bride is a young lady from Muslim background believer, and she is probably stronger spiritually in their marriage relationship than what he is. But I'm excited to see what God's going to do with him. I don't see him as being someone who's going to probably be a strong church leader, but I see him as possibly being someone who's just a solid lay leader, someone who is going to serve the Lord faithfully. But he needs lots of prayer because, Satan looks at these people and says, okay, I'm going to trip them up and get them into trouble. But they got married in January, and they're expecting their first baby sometime after Christmas. And this is the last slide for this part. But Matthew 16:25 says, "For whoever would save his life would lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Sometimes I think, after having been in Bangladesh all these years, and I'm getting older and I'm getting tired, and I don't want to make like a martyr or something. But that's not it at all. But sometimes I look back and think, is this worth it? Is this the day-to-day, the struggles of, being up late at night or not sleeping because I'm on call, or there's some tragic situation at the hospital that we're dealing with, and the frustration with that? Is it really worth it? I know that I need a little bit of time to recoup during this furlough time, and just sit and think and pray and reevaluate things. But I see when I step back, I can see that God is doing some really amazing things in Bangladesh. When I'm right there in the thick of it, I can't really see it. But I'm thankful for these times when we have to leave the field and we have to get away from like the long, hot days when we're so exhausted and we just tumble into bed at the end of the day and we get up and do the same thing the next day. I'm thankful for that, because when we step back, we can see, oh, I can see what God did. And I'm sure that we won't see the half of it this side of eternity. But I'm thankful for that. We really need to recruit some more people to come and help us. So that's a big prayer request. I'll share a little bit more in the morning service in that little blurb about some prayer requests. But that was the last slide that I had. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Or maybe you're like, I'm sleeping. Yeah.
You talked about that you were looking for more students and to place more within your staff. Is that a funding issue?
So this is a really complicated thing with our hospital. We are limited in how many patients we're supposed to admit. The government says, and it's something ridiculous, it's like one physician for every 3 patients. We have 2 long-term doctors, and that's it. So that would mean we could only admit less than 10 patients. We currently have a staff of over 300 people. So how do we pay their salaries if we're not admitting patients? And I realize we're not making a huge amount of money with patient receipts anyways. A lot of care is given on relief. But it's not even so much about money as it is we need to somehow get the government to agree that we can take care of a whole lot more patients than just these 6 or 10 or whatever it is. So at this point, in order for those 4 ladies to be able to get a job who couldn't get one, I need someone to retire, or I need something to happen, unfortunate to someone, so that I'll have an opening to be able to take them in. And there's no point in training more people if I don't have a job for them, because our program is not registered with the government, and so they can only work for us. They could potentially work for other non-governmental organizations, but those jobs are few and far between. So there was. Mm-hmm. more common now than it was even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, nutrition was very poor, and so a lot of moms weren't able to sustain pregnancies that long with twins, let alone with 3 babies. But now, nutrition is much better. Access to prenatal care in most places, at least for the middle to upper class people, is much more available. And so, yeah, triplets are surviving long enough to be able to be delivered. We end up doing it all with C-sections with them. So, yeah. So we haven't had very many this year, but we've also had to really scale back on the OB care that we've been able to offer, simply because we only have 2 long-term physicians who are on call every other night. I would say that when we were running full tilt with OB, we might have 2 or 3 sets a year, which was, in my mind, significantly more than maybe we have 1 set every 2 or 3 years, kind of thing. I mean, it's not a huge number of triplets that we're seeing, but more than what we had before. Yeah. Yeah. What language do we speak there? So the national language is Bengali or Bangla, but then the people who live in my area speak a sort of another dialect of it called Chittagonian. So Bengali is kind of crisp and clear. If I would say, how are you? I would say, Apni kemon achen. If I were to say in Chittagonian, I'd say, Bala asen. So it's like sticking a bunch of marbles in your mouth and then talking around it. Or some of the words are different. I can sort of grasp the conversation in Chittagonian, but I'm not very good at speaking it. So, and then there are lots of other tribal languages.
You mentioned the people coming out of Milo, and what you say is slowed down.
So in I think it was in the late 70s or the 80s that the first waves of refugees started coming across. And then many of them were repatriated someplace else. There are enclaves all over the world. Malaysia, there's places in North America, and they found homes for people. The camps kind of emptied out. And then in 2017, there was another huge wave. I think 800,000 came over at that time. And so then they ended up with over 1 million in the camp. Some of them have kind of dispersed to different places. And a few trickle of people have been able to cross the border, but recently there have been more people who've tried to flee and not been very successful at it. So, which I just don't understand. If Myanmar doesn't want them, just let them go. But they've got to make it hard for them to get across the border. So Bangladesh doesn't want them either. They're a burden. Yeah. What do you do? So, but they're people who are created in God's image, and they need to hear the gospel. So, yeah.
Did you say your containers are coming out of Grand Rapids most of the time? We're involved in the ones for Togo, and that's out of Lansing.
Okay.
I've heard about the place, but I haven't been there yet.
So, Good News Baptist Church in Grand Rapids packs all of our containers for us. They have a packing garage at the church, and then we have warehouse space. I forget where that is, someplace in Grand Rapids. And then when we have enough stuff, then we will contact a shipping company, and then they'll send. It's usually a 40-foot high cube. And we've got like so many hours to load it, and then it leaves from Grand Rapids. So it takes a different route every time, depending on which shipper is going which direction. So. So because I don't have a particular home, like I don't have the mail ward and I don't always stay in OPD. Right now, those major bases are covered. The biggest, and then we're not training anyone right now, so the school is just closed. Probably the biggest thing will be if we get another shipment, who's going to deal with opening that and taking care of it. We're very soon going to be down to even a smaller number of expat nurses. Three of our nurses are beyond the age of retirement, and we only have, there are only 7 of us. So we're going to take a big hit very soon. A couple of them they've talked about retiring in January of 26. So if I get back in the fall of 25, a year from now, that'll give a few months to transfer their responsibilities to me, and then I might have a home then. Maybe I don't want one. I do like variety. I like, moving around to different departments, spending time with different people. Yeah. So Newaygo is my home. My dad lives out on Brooks Lake, and then we also have this farmhouse where he grew up. I've been home 3 nights, and I spent 2 at his house and 1 at the farm last night. So I don't know where. Yeah, there are a lot of things I hadn't planned really well. I just packed up my suitcases and got here. Are you trying to you want to TP my house? Is that what you wanted to do? Oh. Oh, yeah, no, I'm very, very blessed. Yes, no, thank you. Yeah, sorry. So actually, I'll clarify. I'm just a nurse. I didn't go to. I'm not a physician. Didn't go to medical school. So I had the privilege of growing up at First Baptist of Newaygo, and growing up in a Christian family. I accepted Christ when I was young, and I loved every missionary story. Even in junior church when we had a missionary story, I just hung on every word. And I was interested in missions, and I struggled with knowing, is that really what God wants me to do, or am I just looking for a sense of adventure? And actually, nursing came because I knew that if I wasn't getting married, either nurses or teachers work well on the mission field. And so I guess it was all kind of all together. I was always thinking about missions, but not sure if that's what God had for me. I got my nursing degree at Cedarville, and they're very good about introducing missions opportunities, encouraging people toward Christian service. I worked, when I first graduated from nursing school, I worked a couple of years at that point it was Spectrum, Blodgett, Spectrum East Campus. I worked there a couple of years, went to Bangladesh in 2000, was there for a couple of years as a short-termer, and when I came back, I worked at Gerber Hospital in the ER for several years off and on, before leaving full-time in September of 2010 to go back to the field to stay. So, yeah. Hope that answers. Maybe I took care of some of you in the ER. Any other questions? I was really tempted. So we did a little bit of shopping before I left, and an item that I was so tempted to buy was it's a packet of dried fish. People in our area love dried fish, and so people, Bangladeshis who have family in North America, they always want to bring them some of this dried fish stuff. And I saw it, and I'm like, oh, I could probably even get this through customs because it was vacuum packed and everything. And I thought, oh, but no one would appreciate it. So I left it there so you don't have to smell it or taste it. So.
But at heart, you obviously
Honestly, I have no idea. I think they've kind of left it up to us to do our own recruiting. I've signed up to go to the Global Missions Health Conference in Louisville, Kentucky. If you're medical, you might be familiar with it. It's one of the largest gatherings, I think, in North America of medical people who are interested in missions. And ABWE will set up booths there. I know a huge number of people, I think, from Togo are coming and I'll be there, as well as however many colleagues of mine can get visas to be able to come. And we'll just stand at the booth and interact with as many people coming through as possible. We do get a fair number of short-term physicians through World Medical Mission Samaritan's Purse, but rarely have nurses come. It's easier for a physician to step in for a few weeks and do a short stint with us. For nurses, because of the nature of what we do with supervision, consultation, and education, we really need nurses to stay for a little bit longer. We used to say that 6 to 9 months is a minimum commitment. I think we're going to have to change some of our thoughts on that. But it does work a little bit better if nurses can stay longer and get a good orientation before that. So. Yeah. Ooh, most common disease. Well, I think we have a lot of runny noses and coughs and colds like every place in the world. You're probably interested in the more exciting ones. So lately we've had a lot of dengue. Dengue fever. Our people call it dengue, whatever. It might be a different pronunciation. But dengue fever, it comes from mosquitoes like malaria. Different species of mosquito. This one will bite during the daytime, and a lot of our staff have had it. So, yeah. What else? We're seeing a lot of diabetes, a lot of heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, that kind of stuff. But probably the more exciting ones would be typhoid, or we don't see a lot of malaria. We do see a lot of dengue, though. Good question. Yeah. Oh. So we have 6 seasons, and this one is fall season. After this will come cold season, which is not really cold. Yeah. So our season, we're in the northern hemisphere, so it's similar. We're just a little bit closer to the equator. It's always sticky though, always really, really humid.
As people come through your hospital, do you find that their hearts are open to the gospel, or is it pretty?
Not really. I mean, people come and they're like their guards up. They don't really want to hear the gospel. They don't want to hear what the Christians have to say. They're appreciative of the medical care that we give. Everyone wants their baby to be delivered at our hospital because they know that we'll do a good job and we'll do the best that we can. Even if there's not a good outcome, for whatever reason, they know and they trust us. But yeah, they really don't want to hear what we have to say. So it's a difficult field. It's not easy. Yeah.
So your building, I mean, if I look at the pictures of your building, all intents and purposes, looks like our Gerber Hospital here. So you have the facility, you have 300 staff people, roughly, and the government says because you have 2 doctors, you can have how many patients?
Yeah, we can have about 10 patients. Yeah. Again, some of this is it's people who don't want us to succeed, that are nitpicking some of even the laws we're not really sure we understand. The government hospitals, the other NGO hospitals, no one are following these rules, but we have to because we're under the microscope. People are watching us and what we're doing. When I say 300, more than 300 staff, I'm including our people who work in the workshop, our gardeners, our laundry people, not just the people that you normally see out in front doing medicine. Staff nurses, I think we have probably close to maybe 70 of them. I'm not really good with statistics and thinking things through, but if I sat down, I could probably map it out a little bit more.
Basically sounds more like a prayer issue than a finance issue.
Yes, yeah,
And more of a prayer issue for the government
yeah,
to have a change of
yeah.
vision for what we're all trying to do.
We have we have to answer to the civil surgeon. He's he's the authority in our district. And the civil surgeon, we visited him because four of my colleagues were denied the first step in the process of their getting their visas renewed. And then when they went down to visit him, he seemed like he was very cordial at the beginning, but then he kind of got a stiffened spine. I think some of his decisions are being driven by a disgruntled former employee, and he's kind of listening to him. But he visited our hospital, and he had all kinds of bad things to say. He's like, "Why are your uniforms not the color? You know that the color is supposed to be thus and so." And we're like, "No, we didn't. We're a non-governmental hospital. We don't follow the government's rules. We don't know, is this really a big deal, or was he just nitpicking on that?" We had made some different tables for the OR. Our infection rates are very, very low. And he picked them apart and said, "No, you have to have stainless steel. Of course you should have known this. Why didn't you do this?" kind of thing. So in the end, he did sign off on our license. It took some connections with different people to put a little bit of pressure on him. But he's really not for us. He's not happy with us. He doesn't want us to be there. And I think he would be happy for us to leave. So, yeah.
In your trainings, are the students, besides getting medical training, are they accepting of the gospel?
So that's a good question. So the students that are accepted into our program are not all believers. It's a great discipleship program for those who are, because we do have, every day we do a devotional session. And the curriculum, we've developed it in a way so that we weave in biblical principles into our curriculum. However, in this last class, I can't say that any of the non-believers really showed much of a spiritual interest. I have one female student who she went through a nightmare. Her husband was, I think, probably murdered while she was my student. And she has had a really rough time of things. But she got a Bible for graduation, and she's one of the ones that we were not able to hire. And just recently, she was telling me, she's from the majority community, and she says, "I read my Bible every day, and I'm praying." And I don't know if she's truly a believer or not, but I think she's hungry to know more. Now, whether she's hoping that if she's just trying to manipulate me and think, "Oh, well, I need to get her a job so we can," I don't know. She could be playing that game, but I don't think so. I think she genuinely is seeking. But for the most part, a lot of our students, it's very rare. It has happened in the past where some of our students have accepted Christ, but the soil is really, really hard, and it takes a long time for people to come to Christ.